early. Sometimes it's good to be early. But our show starts at a specific time. You should remember that. Let's get started then, shall we?
Dillon, I don't give a what you think about a co-host and freshen up my show.
It might not be flashy, but sometimes you just gotta toss another person to make a statement.
My show's about the people's podcast. Everyone has a voice. I don't need a co-host. Go listen to one of the other 5,000 shows with a co-host because they don't have a mouth like the big guy.
Opie, are you a career killer with Tim Sabian, yourself, and many others?
Be myself. Never had real issues with those people. They just understood that I was a different bird. The rest of them, though, I'm like, oh, shut up. I'm paying your salary because the ratings are so good, so shut up.
Right.
Live from
Somewhere.
it's
Dillon.
Good whatever to you. Whenever you're watching this episode of Cohost Auditions, I am your co-host, Dillon. Today's host is quite popular. This is my self-taped audition for someone who is more established in the streaming world. Me, with all of almost 600 followers, is throwing my hat in the ring to be the second mic for Doughty, who has damn near 2 million followers. So I could use those sweet views and likes that Doughty has. She is a mortician, and she is going to be telling us about the rapper who was the life of his own funeral. So, without any further ado, let's go to Caitlin to take it away for us.
If you're not on social media, you might have missed the controversial funeral held for the rapper Gunu on April 3rd of this year. Several news programs suggested—
Get out of here, Tony Khan. That was a little misclick on my part. The Black Knight that is Tony Khan. It's just a flesh wound. We've lost half of our viewer base, but it's just a flesh wound.
That it was Gunu's memorial that led to controversy. And gosh, to be pedantic here, by definition, a memorial is the celebration after the dead body has already been buried or cremated. This was not a
shallow and pedantic. It's funny, I believe I first heard the word pedantic on Family Guy, so now I always go to that gag of, shallow and pedantic. Hopefully his grave is not shallow.
Memorial because Gunu's body was there at the nightclub, standing up on stage. Once videos and pictures started to appear on Instagram and Twitter, the response, as is maybe possible for you to imagine—
He's got some hell of a pyro there, but maybe he was a fan of The Undertaker. I would have got some marionettes so he could dance at his own funeral. Missing out on that part, the organizer of this celebration of life.
Was swift and sanctimonious. People don't really fear God anymore. That Gunu just set us back at least 35 years. To be honest, Gunu deserved way better, in my opinion.
Yes, marionettes. That commenter knows what I'm talking about. He wanted to be the life of the party at his funeral. And sure, he was the centerpiece. He's got some pyro and some lights. I believe I saw some smoke effects, as you would expect in a dance club. But without those marionette strings, he is unable to really have the send-off that he wanted to.
Outrage and ensuing media attention caused Bliss nightclub in Washington, D.C., where what they called Gunu's final show was held, to release a public statement. Bliss was contacted by a local funeral home to rent out our venue for Gunu's homegoing celebration. Bliss was never made aware of what would transpire. We sincerely apologize to all those who may be upset or offended. Is the nightclub really claiming they were never made aware of the corpse coming to their establishment?
Maybe that's how you get away with shit like that. You ask for forgiveness, not for permission.
On this aspect, I have many questions, but that's not the focus here today. We're going to look at Gunu himself and what his family wanted for his funeral. We're going to look at the rise of what's called extreme embalming, and it's cross-cultural.
Oh, shit. I was unaware. I've got to get my living will down and tell people I want to be propped up in the corner of the gangbang. I'll have rigor mortis in my pecker at that time, so I can absolutely participate, even when dead.
Ability to both appeal and horrify. And finally, we'll look at the fact that Gunu was black. And that means the display of his body in this way is going to mean different things culturally and socially, which may have contributed to the public reaction. We went to the Charles Village neighborhood in Baltimore to speak again to Dr. Cami Fletcher, Associate Professor of American and African American History.
Caitlin certainly has a voice for a mortician. Kind of sounds like a Cardiff Electric type of voice, now that I think of it. As I'm doing the impression of her, it's the same impression as my Cardiff Electric. And that's how I found out that I was bad at impressions, because multiple of my impressions sound exactly the same, when they shouldn't.
And president of the Collective for Radical Death Studies. Before we even started, she wanted to keep our focus on the fact that this was a young man who died tragically.
I'd really like to express my condolences to the Morrow family, to the mother, the sister, to everyone, all the kin.
The entire Goon family. Condolences go out to all goons.
Both blood and bond to everyone in the DC community, because I know Gunu.
R.I.P. Big 664. All right, you're going to have to explain this to us, Surviving Goon, what this 6 and 64 is all about.
Really left a hole in that community, everyone in Prince George's County. You really have my condolences. I'm so sorry.
PG County, as we call it up in Maryland.
This is Markel Morrow, also known as Gunu.
I'm a normal person.
I was from the backwoods county of Carroll. Prince George, that county actually has something going on. A. Smith has seen a few more of these. I kind of vaguely remember this when it happened, but all these other ones, like seeing a guy on a bike, and I hope they have his feet like duct taped to the bike pedals so he can pedal one last time. That's what I'm talking about, as being disappointed with Goon not having the marionette strings.
I'm not just a rapper, bro. I live a regular life just like you.
He was from District Heights, Maryland, and began rapping in 2017. He gained notice for his charisma and low-tone flow that was described as whisper.
You've got a low-tone flow, Caitlin. It's unfortunate that you only learned about him after the fact. You could have made a guest appearance on one of his rap tracks.
Enchanted, eerie, and most notably, off the beat. Angela Bird, founder of a hip-hop think tank, cool, said, when Gunu came out, everybody was asking why he was rapping off beat like that, but it made him legendary. Gunu was young, only 24, but he was prolific and original. But his career came to an abrupt end on the evening of Friday.
That is absolutely not what you learn from Corey Feldman. You learn from Corey Feldman to always sing exactly with the beat every single song, even though it doesn't make sense.
March 18th in District Heights. Police were called to the scene at around 5:40 p.m., where they found Gunu in a parking lot with a gunshot wound after an apparent robbery. He was taken to a hospital.
Wait a minute. I need some more details. The robbers fled, or Gunu was taking part in this heist?
Where he was pronounced dead at 7:30 p.m. Gunu's family decided to...
Because that is pretty gangsta. You want to get your gangster reputation up, you go and rob yourself a liquor store. Unfortunately, you robbed the wrong one, motherfucker.
...to make his funeral a celebration, an event. They worked with Dunn and Sons Funeral Home in Washington, D.C. to arrange...
What a great name! Dunn! Because you're done!
...arrange a homegoing event for Markel Morrow. For those people who are from a culture where a funeral is a very somber, weeping affair, where does the jubilation in a homegoing come from?
Yeah, it's the celebration of life. It's taking the time to say you mattered.
I really like those twerking photos. Are those ladies twerking there at the actual funeral?
Yeah, it's the celebration.
There is... Is that your butt, or do you have like a butt implant? That is a big old booty to be twerking with. The other lady doesn't have a big old booty to be twerking with, but I will take both.
Of life is taking the time to say you mattered, we miss you, you mattered, we love you, you mattered, you will be missed.
It's like one of his songs where every other word is "you mattered." It sounds like she's a poet herself. Blah 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 blah. You mattered. Blah 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 blah. You mattered.
You've got to take the time to do that, and only for.
Oh, you messed up the rhyme scheme or the flow scheme. You were supposed to say "you mattered" after that point. You were establishing a nice little beat there that we would all remember.
For a group of people who are continuously marginalized, know that we have to take the time to do that.
So what mattered to Markel Morrow? This is what his sister Ariana said.
My brother didn't go to church. So that would be unlikely and very fake and phony for us to go and put my brother in a casket.
In a suit?
And
same thing with my family. A recent death, it was remembrance was not held at a church because we don't like church. We do not believe in church.
Listening to gospel music in a suit. My brother told me he didn't want to be in no suit.
So his funeral wasn't in a church and wasn't in a suit. The funeral home embalmed Morrow's body, like really embalmed it, more on that in a second, and booked a nightclub.
Well, I'm looking forward to what that means, really embalming, and not just your standard run-of-the-mill embalming, and a mortician would know.
For the event.
Boy, not to degrade my host for the day, Caitlin, but I would not want to be in a cocaine party with her. I believe that she may take more than her worth, and not even being her fault, just the way that nose is designed. No, we are not going to split that 8-ball, Caitlin.
When that first club backed out, Bliss nightclub was quickly booked instead on the evening of April 3rd. Morrow's body was brought to Bliss, where it was positioned standing on stage, in jeans, an Amiri sweatshirt, and a crown on his head, as people performed music and danced around him. Admission was $40. I assumed to cover the cost of the event, although the price would prove to be controversial, with accusations of charging to see a dead body. The club was filled with lights and...
Clearly, these people are unfamiliar with the touring Vladimir Lenin body. I think they charge money for it. Then again, that's communist Russia. They hadn't gotten the evil capitalist ways into their system in 1920. Lenin may not have approved of his body being shown for money.
Smoke and energy. Much of the discourse would insist there was no way Morrow's mother wanted.
Now I'm looking at those pyrotechnics, and I'm kind of wishing that's where they would have done the cremation process. That would have been a fun little bonus. Yeah, doing it inside in a club, that would get it smelling like burning flesh inside Bliss for years. So, a good thing you stopped short there.
Much of the discourse would insist there was no way Morrow's mother wanted this for her son. But they would be wrong. It's exactly what she wanted. And as next of kin, she had all the power here. Said Patrice Morrow, "They have no idea. I'm pleased with how I sent my son away. I wish people would just let me grieve in peace." Added Morrow's sister, Patrice
This is a good workaround to the monopoly that is the funeral industry. They really want to upsell you on all types of shit when it's like, oh, hey, no, we don't need any of that. We're going to throw him in a ditch after he's done, use him for a compost. It's a very nice ditch. We have a lot of vegetation growing in that ditch. It's going through a restoration process. So fuck your tens of thousands of dollars to be buried in a fancy box that we get to see once. I want to see that fancy box all the time for all the money we're spending on it.
It's very disrespectful. It's very insensitive. If you do not like it, don't speak on it.
Don't speak on it.
It's how let us grieve how we want to.
Yeah, I think this video is talking both me and Mr. Z into holding a party where our corpse is the centerpiece. Save on a shitload of money.
If you're new to this channel, or to the concept of death positivity, even though I have my own specific ideas about where I'd like to see the funeral industry go in the future, I'm essentially not a political libertarian, but a corpse libertarian.
Woo! Libertarian!
Meaning that if a family
Vote Glenn Jacobs.
and a community makes a choice for a dead body that brings them comfort and healing, it's not for the government or laws or even social media to determine whether that choice is disrespectful or undignified. But to be clear, if you were one of those people on social media, I don't want to shame you either. Most people on social media in the hours and days following the service didn't necessarily have the context to process what they were seeing. It's definitely jarring to be scrolling Instagram and it's like, sneakers, your childhood best friend's dog, an ad.
Can we stick around with the pug for a little while? I know this is an episode about death and such, as David Collins is dropping his knowledge from his mother to say nothing at all if he can't say nice things about a dead body. And that's why they embalm it, so we don't have to talk about how smelly that dead body is.
Ad for a sparkling CBD mocktail and is that a dead body? That's a dead body.
What was your first thought when you heard about Gunu?
I wasn't surprised.
Her first thought? Maybe it was one of the groupies for Goon that was her first thought.
But I know why people are surprised, right? You know, during the Civil War, that's how you advertised as a mortician. Look at my work, right? This is how well I can preserve the body that this...
She's taken it back to the beginnings. See, people were calling this a disrespectful new way of doing things, but no, she's taking us back to the past in a much better way than James Rolfe does nowadays. Ugh. Tune in tomorrow for a movie-making nerd, Chapter 2. I thought that it was going to be fun reviewing the book of James Rolfe. It's not. But I've committed, so every other Wednesday, a movie-making nerd book review deep dive. Oh, watch me and Spurg Snake suffer.
Person can stand, they look like themselves. But, you know, I think that homegoing celebration was exactly a representation of his life. He was a rapper. His final performance is going to be on that stage. And so I got it. You know, I get what they were really trying to do. And there was some...
His final performance as a rapper, but he isn't saying anything. You didn't have the marionette strings. Maybe you could have had a microphone up to his butthole so that when gases escape, he could actually have some sort of audio final performance.
Something that the mother said, I think is really telling. You know, she says, "You're not going to look down on my son." And she meant that. We looked up to him on the stage just like, you know, we always did when he was performing.
Why do you think it was so common?
Before we get more into this funeral, Mr. Z reminding us about the robbery. That's something I started making a point about, and our mortician here, Caitlin, has just kept on going with the story of the dead body. So I am curious, was he caught in the crossfire, or was he part of the robbery team? Because, as I said, street cred. Got to rob a place every so often to keep your street cred up.
Controversial.
Because you have a corpse in a nightclub.
Let's talk about where the...
A lot cheaper, too, than a hologram, David Collins. You get the actual dead body there, but you can't get him actually rapping like you did with the Tupac hologram. And at that point, if we were going to get Tupac's corpse, it was going to be in several pieces. He's been decaying for a little while now.
Idea for Gunu's service likely came from.
You know, standing up, we did say we wanted him propped up some way. Because we did see other services that it was done that way, so we liked it, and that's what we wanted.
It's time for a funeral industry trend report.
All right, are you going to tell us about your forward-thinking ways of where to take the funeral industry?
The least sexy of the trend reports. In the last 10 to 15 years, there's been a strong move away from the 20th century funeral model of embalming, casket, church, cemetery, embalm.
And I already mentioned Vladimir Lenin. Wasn't his corpse on tour whole thing, the whole reason we have embalming nowadays, I do need to do a little research on my funeral history. I am not quite sure. Mr. Z wondering if our buddy Goon here is a Hans Sprungfeld. If he did indeed have that silver tongue, I believe that would have proven that he was part of the robbery team and not caught in the crossfire, which we don't have answers to.
Embalming, casket, church, cemetery. You heard the Morrow family say Markel didn't go to church. He didn't wear a suit. Funerals of the future can be rough.
He worshiped the devil.
Roughly split into two camps. One camp is the let's make funerals more family involved, much less expensive, and greener camp, which is where my advocacy is focused. She said extremely smugly. I'm smug, what can I say? Smuggerella. Then there's the personalization camp. That's the theory that what people are really missing are funerals and memorials that reflect the very unique interests of the person who has died. That's why you see memorials themed.
It is a painful way, if a person is still alive, to die by embalming. But David Collins, you're absolutely right. Take all the blood out, and you will be sure that you will not have a Nikki and Paolo situation like in Lost. But of course, on that terrible, shitty show, they didn't have embalming fluid on the island. The Dharma Initiative didn't think that far ahead. They just threw the bodies out to the polar bears.
Parks and urns shaped like golf clubs and opportunities to turn mom into a diamond. My theory is that the rise of extreme embalming, meaning posing a body.
Oh yeah, Abe Lincoln's corpse predates Lennon. So I do need to look up my history of the funeral industry and what they did with dead bodies, because that's right. I forgot about the Lincoln corpse before the Vladimir corpse going on tour. And then, of course, we have the Charlie Chaplin corpse. That didn't go on tour by choice, but grave robbers certainly took it for a ride.
Body sitting or standing up with no casket to be seen is coming from that personalization impulse. Bodies have been positioned on a motorcycle, as a boxer in a boxing.
Oh, look, I think that's the guy which one of our beloved chatters? Was it Mr. Z, A. Smith, mentioned the guy on the bike earlier?
Ring, driving a taxi, playing NBA 2K in a Kyrie Irving jersey and Kyrie socks. Have we ever determined if Kyrie knows about this? We've personalized urns and caskets and—
Wait. That mermaid was shitting a candy cane.
Have we ever determined if Kyrie knows about this? We've personalized urns.
You go really quick. You're covering up the lead. You're burying the lead, literally, with those golf clubs. I want to talk about the mermaid shitting a candy cane.
Urns and caskets and memorials and headstones, and it's time we personalized the corpse itself. Give the wake some personality. Full disclosure, people in the green funeral camp have a somewhat complicated relationship with embalming.
Just sell it to science. You've seen those exhibits before where they cut up the bodies into little teeny sections or take the skin off and have them doing stuff. That is much more green than anything that the funeral industry will give you.
The chemical preservation of the body, what allows these bodies to be standing up and posed. Here's where I land on this. If you're going to embalm, heck, you might as well have the body doing something fun.
See, she's with me. Are you going to get into how the marionette strings was a complete lost opportunity for what could have been his last performance? His mother was calling it his last performance, but no, not without marionette strings.
Very nature, such an endeavor requires a large amount of family involvement and collaboration and planning, and that intensity of involvement is grief work. One place we've begun seeing this trend is in New Orleans, perhaps most famously with—
I believe it's pronounced Nolans. And that Cajun accent, I cannot understand that for shit. There are a lot of accents that I've heard, and the Cajun accent, motherfucker, I've got to ask a guy what he's saying like 3-4 times in a row.
Miriam Burbank in 2014. Miriam was posed with her beloved New Orleans Saints football memorabilia, a menthol cigarette, a beer, and a scotch. A disco ball was turning, and people said it was more like a party than a funeral. Earlier that same year, you had Billy Standley riding his custom 1967 Harley-Davidson Electra Glide cruiser into...
Why is he in a Pope mobile? Who's gonna kill a corpse? And even if he does kill a corpse, well, I guess it's the people. It must be a zombie hunting community. That is my guess. The corpse is in the Pope mobile because this community is very afraid of zombies and will take a shot.
Eternity. Stanley had a team of 5 embalmers working to make this a reality. He was even buried in that massive glass casket. He was a quirky man, his daughter said. Of course, the idea of a corpse sitting...
Oh, glass casket.
...or standing post-mortem...
There is a fecal matter joke there to be made. Instead of a glass coffee table, a glass casket. But I haven't made it to the punchline quite yet.
...mortem is certainly not new. In Sagada, in the Philippines, they are perhaps most known for their hanging coffins. But for centuries, the indigenous people have honored their dead by sitting them upright. The dead body is wrapped and seated in a death chair, and then smoked with a fire to preserve it for the few days that it sits amongst the living. There is storytelling, song, talking directly to the dead, and even offering food and drink to the dead.
We all know that the departed really enjoyed him some scat porn. He got coffee tables like several times a year because they would be ruined from all the scat that was built up on it. So please, the dearly departed, everyone line up. If you don't have to make poopies, please go to the food spread, get yourself some beans, some Taco Bell, and the dearly departed would really appreciate it to have himself pooped on one more time in this glass coffin. Thank you, Hackride Studios, for the $5. Co-host audition suggestion, Carl Pilkington, The Idiot Abroad. I wonder if he has a solo show that would fit in well with the format that I do here, because Carl Pilkington, he is a funny, dumb little bastard that the Ricky Gervais show really took advantage of. And a thank you for the $5 dues. Here's a little thank you jingle.
Thank you for the super chat. Get that mustache out of here.
No mustaches allowed. At least according to T.S. Luna.
But the type of extreme embalming we're seeing now, with the personalized tableau reflecting the person...
That's my fucking favorite one. That's a hilarious knockoff Green Lantern costume, a homemade affair. So, actually, I know quite a few cosplayers from Los Angeles. I do miss the cosplayers. I found those ladies to be quite hot. So this guy... He made his own funeral attire.
That people can come visit? That arguably had its debut in San Juan, Puerto Rico in 2008, where it gained popularity and attention as El Muerto Parao. People point to Angel Luis Pantojas, who in 2008 was embalmed and positioned standing up in his mother's living room, wearing a Yankees hat.
Oh yeah, I forgot that terrible Green Lantern movie. Maybe it was indeed a legit movie prop. It looked more like one from the low-budget B movies that Roger Corman... Roger Corman? I get my Cormans mixed up. The producer Corman and Harvey Corman was the actor. Roger Corman, the dirt cheap producer. That did look like one of his attires, Mr. Z.
As a child, Pantojas had seen his father's body in a casket and did not want that to be him someday. At this point, I know what you're asking. How is this done? No, it's not taxidermy. I spoke with Monica Torres, our resident specialist restorative artist and embalmer. This is a real Ask a Mortician cinematic universe episode.
And it makes sense why she does makeup for corpses. Good Lord, that is a pound of makeup on her. She likes her makeup. Unlike Caitlin here, she is very minimalist with her makeup versus, What'd you say makeup girl's name was again?
The embalmers in New Orleans and San Juan who do these services are often quite secretive about their techniques, but Monica suspects they're using waterless embalming to get bodies into those positions. By waterless embalming, we mean skip all the water usually mixed into the embalming tank, do not pass go to straight high-index formaldehyde.
See what I said earlier about her? Right now she sounds a whole lot like Cardiff. This sounds like Cardiff's sister or something. The way that she's talking. I'm going to keep my impression the same of my Caitlin Doughty impression, the same as my Cardiff Electric impression.
The embalming tank, do not pass go to straight high-index formaldehyde embalming fluid.
Higher strength of fluid is definitely recommended and needed.
Which means more formaldehyde.
More
Basically,
formaldehyde.
Cranked up formaldehyde.
Yes.
Monica has immense respect for what the embalmers are able to accomplish.
Ooh, Skittles especially works for coating dead bodies, Jerry Lahane. That goes along with their weird campaign. And Sour Patch Kids. Sour Patch Kids and Skittles, I could see getting in on this funeral industry of coating the dead.
And sees the high level of skill involved to keep the face and hands looking anything close to realistic and supple. She also notes that many of the embalmers leading this innovation are women, and that she herself would be honored to be asked to attempt such an embalming. Someone has to let Monica do this. I will sponsor it. I'll sponsor the whole thing. You have to really want it, though. It can't be just...
Okay, which one of me and my beloved chatters are the most dead? We've got to throw our hat in the ring to get this lady her dream of propping us up instead of throwing us down into a 6-foot hole.
Because you need someone to pay for your funeral because we have such non-existent help for lower income people in the American death care system.
Mr. Z is nominating Joey C's wife to be the first one to get this practice on her.
Another video. Gunu was far from the first person to be embalmed and displayed in this way. So why was his death, in particular, so controversial? Buckle up, this is like a 14-part answer. To start, I suspect that part of the discomfort came from the interactive element. I want to point this out because it's actually a conceptual leap forward and an extremely interesting one. The funeral home and the Morrow family were doing some kind of visionary stuff here. Gunu wasn't placed in a personalized tableau, carefully managed at the funeral home. In most extreme
Luigi Greenberg, he suggests his favorite way of embalming, as Caitlin just told us, no water. That will help get you to stand up straight like that. Luigi Greenberg is suggesting some ropey loads instead of water in the embalming process to get your body to be all stiff. And that is a very intelligent strategy, because we do know the stiffness that builds up in your favorite fuck sock.
Embalmings we've seen, Gunu would have been at the funeral home in a nightclub-like atmosphere that was more of a visual representation of his career as a rapper. Like, here's the corpse, here's some turntables, here's a microphone stand, but it's not real. Like a taxidermy display where you know you're...
See, you could have had Gunu's rap tracks playing throughout the night and had his mouth... along with it, but you just stopped a little bit short of Gunu's death there.
You're not really at the watering hole, it's an illusion. But Gunu's body wasn't in this kind of fake tableau. He was at the actual club with actual music and performances.
In our 21st century, you do not see a corpse in a nightclub and people are partying, popping bottles. I saw the whole sparklers, right? The bottle girls, the whole thing.
I thought this commentary channel...
He got the Goldberg entrance there.
On YouTube made a great point.
It was a gesture I could understand in a lot of ways. For one, for a rapper to be robbed and taken out in his own neighborhood, that was a level of disrespect that I'm sure he didn't.
A rapper to be robbed and taken out in his own neighborhood. There's the information that we've been asking for about 15 minutes there. It sounds like he was indeed only going to pick up a 40 or a Gatorade or something.
appreciate. So for
That does drop his street cred of not being part of the robbery crew.
his family to have him standing on stage and getting love from the crowd, in a way it was like a FU to the killers, as if to say, Gunu still gets more love and respect than those that took him out. It's like having the last word.
So yes, there was something unique about it, a jump forward, but it's also noticeable how these jumps, these leaps in death care, are treated depending who the dead body is. For example, remember Billy Stanley, who wrote his 1967 Harley-Davidson Into Eternity? He worked on the idea for years, and his desire to do it was treated as hopelessly homespun and quirky. Old Billy's last ride. He gave it a lot of thought, said his funeral director. He was a unique man, a man who spoke his mind and did things whether people liked it or not. That acceptance and attitude about Stanley's wishes is wonderful, but that kind of bold agency is not really the treatment Gunu is getting in the press or social media.
Because of whiteness, you can do something quirky or weird and still not be
Hooray, white privilege.
Seen as dangerous. It's as simple as that.
Oh boy, that can be taken out of context and clipped, can't it?
You can move in next door. You can get the bank loan. You can go to the school, right? You can still assimilate and just have this kind of thing that, you do or you did, right?
Resistance is futile. Assimilate to the funeral industry unless you are someone like Locutus.
Black folks have been grouped, and if, the morals, they had that funeral in that way, I might as well have had that funeral in that way. And it's looked down upon. So there's a hyper policing that black folks do to each other. No.
Because of Whiteness is the title of Luigi Greenberg's new novel. Because of Whiteness, I'm going to have a poster. It'll be at the very end of a bukkake scene. Because of Whiteness, with all our favorites like Piper Perry.
We can't step out to, black folks that agree and say, yeah, it's disrespectful. This is not a proper way to do a funeral, to bury somebody. They're thinking about what the mainstream, white society will think of them.
Dr. Fletcher wanted to make this point that some of the reaction may be based.
When I hear the name Fletcher, it always takes me back to Archie Bunker. It's Felcher, Archie. It's Felcher, Caitlin.
In fear of the judgment.
Did the writers of All in the Family know what felching was? Because that happened on multiple episodes where Edith had to correct him. It's Felcher.
Coming in from white society. Fear that this type of funeral will somehow reinforce negative, dangerous stereotypes already held against the black community.
Consumerism. People are looking at this and they're saying this costs a lot of money. Right. And
less than a funeral, though. Dumbasses. Funerals are crazy expensive.
And should they be spending this on the money? Can they afford this? If you believe that most black folks in this country are on welfare, and they're taking from the government, food stamps, on housing, right? They're taking from the government. They're not self-sustaining. They don't support themselves. They don't have a job. They don't want a job, right? Why are they spending what looks like thousands of dollars on this funeral? They can't afford it, right?
Let's talk about Abraham Lincoln.
All right, as my chat pointed out earlier, the Abraham Lincoln body tour, which I was skipping right over for the Vladimir Lenin body tour.
This will all come together, just give me a second. One could argue that embalming as a concept had its big debut with what we'd now call an extreme...
Mr. Z, you were way ahead of the curve on the Lincoln tour.
Embalming. President Lincoln was an early adopter of embalming. When his 11-year-old son Willie died, they had him embalmed. And after Lincoln himself was shot to death...
Actually, there was no Willie Lincoln. That is actually been through storytelling. That was when his dick stopped working. Willie Lincoln was when he could no longer pleasure his homosexual lover, while Mary Todd was Lincoln's beard. So that's got confounded over the years, but he couldn't get it hard for a lady. Don't be silly. First gay president with his beard.
Death in 1865, he was embalmed as well. Lincoln's body boarded a funeral train that would backtrack Lincoln's path from Illinois to Washington. His body inside a casket with his face revealed would...
Spurgsnake picking up on that fun little segue. Blacks are bad with money. So, about Lincoln.
Visit 180 cities and travel over 1,600 miles. For the first few cities, Lincoln's body was fine, described as natural. But after a 23-hour viewing in Manhattan, Lincoln's body wasn't looking so lifelike and natural anymore. The New York Evening Post...
Aha! That's why I thought of Lennon, because they figured out those fancy-dancy embalming methods to put him on tour. They didn't figure out those fancy-dancy embalming methods for Lincoln Corpse on tour.
Called it a ghastly shadow. Despite reports of his waxen and discolored appearance, mourners still came out in droves. Even at the tail end of his journey, with his body in a state of decay, people...
I forget when I first heard about the gay Lincoln rumors, but it was well over a decade ago, maybe 2 decades ago, that I first heard of the Lincoln gay rumors, and I was like, I'm gonna buy into this. It's kind of hard to argue one way or another towards things that happened in the 1800s, but I'm going on the gay Lincoln train. And not that gay Lincoln train. No. If I'm in a train, I'm not there in the middle, as Lincoln would want me.
Expressed relief at seeing the man they had made an integral and personal part of their lives. I thought it might be too wild to compare GNU and Abraham Lincoln, but after I wrote this, I found out the Washington Post had already done it. So I feel like the discourse around this stuff has really come a long way in recent years. It's heartwarming. For me, at least. Both men were murdered. Both given intense, extreme embalming treatments and taken out in the world to be celebrated and greeted by fans one final time. From that perspective, what happened with
both had a beard of a wife.
GNU's body is downright American. But we know it's not that simple. As we've said, we can't ignore the fact that GNU was black, and post-mortem display of the black body in the United States hasn't always been just like Lincoln. Whee!
Oh, are we going to start talking about how lynching used to be a pastime in some cities? We're going to get a little dark in these last 5 minutes, aren't we, Caitlin?
Yeah.
Millions of people knew of him and millions came to see him. An unknown corpse that was put on public display in June of 1929 and wasn't buried until 1964. He was called Eugene.
He did have a tattoo, goon, across his neck. So that was a fun little tattoo.
And tonight, the conclusion to this most unusual story.
On June 13th, 1929, the body of a black man was found in a ditch in Sabina, Ohio. Nobody knew him, he had no identification, and all he had on him was $1.40 and a piece of paper with an address in Cincinnati on it.
Isaac Walmart, that typo made me giggle. The stove top hate.
Eugene,
the Lincoln who did not free the slaves. He had the stovetop hate,
as they called him, was kept at the Littleton Funeral Home, a white-owned funeral home, where he was embalmed, given a suit, and kept for 30 days to see if the next of kin would come to claim him. After nobody claimed Eugene, the Littleton family decided to keep his body in state, in the shed, out back, behind the funeral home, for the next 35 years.
How to make a mummy.
Eugene became a tourist attraction. He would travel to the local pumpkin shows.
When you came to town, you went around to see Eugene.
He was also the star of local pranks. It was tradition for the students to steal his body and stash him in the high school or sitting in a restaurant. Eugene...
Oh, hijinks. What you used to be before the proper time we live in now.
body was stolen for a final time in 1958 and taken all the way to a park bench on the campus of Ohio State University before people finally started to question the wholesome fun of having Eugene on display. The man they called Eugene was finally buried in 1964. Some of the particular outrage and discomfort with Gunu's funeral may be the precedent for display of the Black Dead that's more Eugene than Abraham Lincoln. It might be we are much more sensitive about any whiff of desecration around the black body because black bodies, alive or dead, have not always been treated well. Gunu's situation is close.
We need to get Piper Perry to treat that corpse very well. She'll treat it good.
To Lincoln's, but to some, display of his body feels more like a Eugene, and those associations don't go away overnight.
The spectacle, right? Like that's what you're talking about. The spectacle of
No, I don't have my spectacles. I'm wearing my contact lenses today.
The black body at the hands of whites. Lynching, government experimentation. Look at Sarah Bartman's body, right? Medical science, right? Dana Ramey Berry has that wonderful book, The Price for Their Pound of Flesh, just talking about enslaved people's cadavers, right? Being used, right? But that's not what this is. This is not white folks taking ownership.
See, the perverts who keep dead bodies, they're kind of in a no-win situation. You don't want the body to decompose, so you want to keep it frozen or really chilled. But when they go to violate those bodies, it doesn't. You want a warm hole, not a cold one. So perverts, necrophiles, they've got a tough choice to make. Do I get this at least at room temperature and have a comfortable little in-out, or do I have a chilly in-out and keep the body for longer?
Ownership in death. It took a lot of time to do what that embalmer did, to do what that and I know it was a black funeral home. Yeah. And to do what that black funeral home did, that took a lot of time. That's number one. And that shows care, that shows concern, and you listen and you looked at the family.
This is a story about agency. Who gets to step out of the death care norm and have it celebrated? And who gets dragged on social media and pulled back into line? Something both Dr. Fletcher and I are both impressed with is the way
it's felt ya, Caitlin.
Markel Morrow's family have refused to apologize for their choices and said essentially, you can witness this, you can...
Oh boy, Gunax, that is not a... don't let that picture get out while you were alive. That was a weirdly worded sentence. I hope that picture didn't get out while you were alive. That really... street cred gone. You're dressed as an elf on Christmas with family. That ain't street.
Even comment, but we won't be accepting your insistence that what we did with our son is disrespectful or wrong.
There's a scholar out of Brown, Renee Adder.
A scholar out of Brown. So on to the pink with this scholar.
That took to Instagram black squares with white lettering, name, birth date, death date, and it makes you pause.
You mentioned the pause. Gunu made us pause.
Yeah.
You know, and even if someone doesn't understand it, if they're like, oh, it's gross, it's a body, like, which is a lot of American culture, like it or not, it made us pause.
You're gonna watch that whole video.
Stupid religious right to saying ew to bodies. Bodies are hot, except when they're dead. Then they're cold.
Right, and you talking about the pause. There are some videos, okay, I saw 10 seconds of it, and I'm steady scrolling. The one that I definitely saw to completion, it starts at his feet, and it just scans all the way up, and then it scans the crowd. You centered him in a way that he may not have been centered in life, and I think the mother was right.
Okay, that's a really funny establishing shot. To see the dead body, clearly dead body there, and then move over to the fucking party. It looks like they're celebrating his death, not his life, but they're celebrating his life. Good for him.
Her son was a king, and we held him and we looked at him in that way.
Jerry Lahane pointing out that souls don't give a fuck what you do with their bodies. They're not going back in there. They'll run around and visit relatives, sometimes in their sleep, before going into that light, or maybe they don't know how to go into that light, and that's when you need Zelda from Poltergeist.
Since we spoke last, Black Death has been more
King of Prince George's County?
Public and splayed across national media than ever. Do you
That's
think
a lot of Patreons.
There is some element of that is protest and that is positive in some way?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think all of it is. You know, let's start with the t-shirts, right? So these rest in peace, these RIP t-shirts are in your face. They're letting you know I'm in mourning. White society.
Can I still buy one?
Society is quick to say we're post-racial. They're quick to say it's over. Racism, we did it. We washed our hands of it. If you're...
Oh, no, I wish I had that Rambo drop on my board. It's over, Johnny. It's over.
You're gonna keep killing black folks by white supremacy. You're gonna see these rituals that you're seeing, because we've got to do them if we're gonna go on. And it's in a protest agency way. This was a person. This was not some thug, this stereotype.
He could be both.
Right? Person that did not matter. No, this person.
In fact, being a gangster rapper, I don't think he would appreciate you saying that he wasn't a thug. You are taking his rep down even further.
Left a hole in my family, in my community. And we saw that with George Floyd, that this was not, a nationally recognized person, but he was so important to his family and in his community. And they would not let that go.
No comment.
They took to the streets. They would not stop, and we've seen a lot of change because of their sacrifice. People really sacrificed.
That was Caitlin.
This video is brought to you by
Doughty. I only prepared one video. Actually, I did have some fun TikToks with death, but they did not make it through the DMCA detector over here on YouTube.
You're not human.
I should have pulled out. I need to start making sure I over-prepare. I used to over-prepare, and now I am slightly under-preparing, it seems. But then again, a lot of these videos are over 20 minutes. Did we really violate community guidelines? Oh, YouTube is messing with you too. Just like they messed with me, taking down my video and giving me a soft strike for watching a movie that's public domain. Yeah. So let's see. Let's visit the church. Yeah, let's go ahead and take it to our clown segment for the day. Wish I would have that other segment, but unfortunately had some music in there, and YouTube is kind of a dick about the copyrighted music. So we're going right to our clown lady. This is Raven Grimm and Spookykins and Danielle Day Nicola. So we have 3 clown ladies here in this one.
I love wearing sunglasses. That way nobody can tell what I'm looking at.
Take one last breath.
Here we have one more from our new friend, the curvy Raven Grimm, with a lot of DMCA violating music. So we will just watch the Bounty Clowns. The one here lying down, the lower right, she has got my attention the most. All of you very busty, but you showing off that bustiness a whole lot. Yeah, it's nice we get the intro one by one, but I don't think we had enough of the bouncy. We've got a French clown, or as they're known over there in France, a clown. Goth clown. Somewhere in the middle of a goth clown and a French clown. Not a natural breast in the bunch, and that's okay. Actually, I spoke too soon. I think These are our natural boobies, and the rest are silicone. Yeah, no way. No way those are real. Kill me with silicone. I would like a silicone overdose from this lady. I think that one is... nope, she doesn't have listed all the other clowns that made this video happen. And now YouTube took us right to the creep off. Carl and Vinny doing something creepy over there, just like we were doing something creepy over here today, talking about dead bodies. And yeah, I've been trying to get these shows to about 90 minutes rather than an hour, and I've been under-preparing the past couple of weeks. Thank you all for joining. I will be here regularly Tuesday through Thursday. Might knock it down to two days in the new year, Wednesday and Thursday. Combine this show that statistically no one watches. Thank all you folks for stopping in and watching, but statistically no one's watching this channel. So I think I might be taking co-host auditions and TikTok around the clock into one news magazine type of show, and then doing our fun. Oh boy, Spurg Snake, are you finding a movie-making nerd torturous? It was by chapter 2C, only 50, 60 pages into this book that I was like, what the fuck have I done? Oh, this seemed like such a good day. Same thing with Aaron Imholt. I did not have a St. Cloud moron show last week. I needed a personal day, a mental health day. I like had a breakdown, and I was like, what the fuck am I doing with my life covering Imholt? But I think he'll be back. I think we'll have more Aaron Imholt. I'm not sure, because I did break last week, and I was like, no show today. My head hurts. I am not compiling Aaron Imholt clips this week. I can't do it. So yeah, that's what's coming up. Oh, and we'll have a bonus show next week for anybody who is a rope shooter. The $4.99 membership tier. We will be doing, I think we'll be checking out some of my liked videos of TikTok over the years. So that will be a fun little dive into madness. This show has cured whatever clown phobia I may have had. All right, Nimrob. I'm glad that the clown phobia can be overcome with the right amount of clussy, as it's known. Clown pussy is an actual term, and that was... I did have one more prepared, as I said, but unfortunately, the DMCA was like, nah, man. Some fun jiggly-jigglies. Before we get out of here, Jerry Lahane. Origin of Clowns, I'd gamble, is ancient reaction to childhood visions of lower dimensional, thinner than mist creatures floating. We walk through daily energy vampire with faces. Ooh. I think it's actually just making fun of the drunks from the late 1800s, early 1900s. I think that is legit the origin of clowns. I think they're only about 100 or so years old. I'll have to look into that, but I do know that like the clown is making fun of all the drunks looking for money. Shooting ropes, shades Cal, just like our buddy Richard Christie. And for $4.99 a month, you can become a rope shooter. Actually, I can go ahead and give out a few memberships right now while I do a little bit of vamping. Took me way too long to figure out how to do this, but membership... Yep, give 5 now. 5 memberships. So next week, we will have a bonus episode for any of you new members to check this out. Principled Uncertainty, Uncle Jack, Melissa Etheridge, Michaela, and Mint Diggity. Hope you join us next week for our bonus show. I guess that'll be Friday morning. We will do our bonus show next Friday morning, and checking out some madness from TikTok. Unfortunately, Sam Bibley, I can't give them out specifically to people, and you're a regular beloved chatter, so that is disappointing that someone who's here a lot of the time. That's actually been happening with me over at Hack Riot's channel as well. I'll be chatting for quite a while, and Actually, I think I got to switch that over. I'm a Patreon member of his. Patreon coming soon. That'll have to be for the second tier of content when I get on Patreon. The things like watch-alongs and even watch-alongs with movies that are in the public domain. YouTube doesn't like. Sam Bibley, YouTube may be just like you. You've been too lucky. We're not giving you the luck over here. We're giving it to these folks over here now. Oh yes, Shades Cal. Peter North, the rope shooter, the true legend. We picked up that name thanks to Elisa Jordana. She was bawling her eyes out. He said he loves shooting ropes inside of her. Haven't heard from her in quite a while. Yeah, that is all for today. Be back tomorrow with James Rolfe's A Movie Making Nerd Deep Dive. This hurts. This really hurts. I am doing a service for people who are curious but are not into self-harm by going over A Movie Making Nerd. It stinks. TikTok around the clock on Thursday, and that is it for me for the week. Tuesday through Thursday, 11:30 a.m. Eastern. Bonus show next Friday. And yeah, I'll be cutting it down to only 2 a week in the new year. Thanks to, excuse me, a little bit of a stutter fucky there. I am a stutterfuck. So thank you so much for joining. Sam Bibley, I believe that'll be the finale. I kind of, when I was ripping out my hair and like, I hate covering James Rolfe's book and the steel toe. I think hindsight rewrite. I've got plenty of notes on it. It's going to take a lot of pre-production prep. So I've got plenty of time. I'm a hindsight rewrite. I am the hindsight producer of the Angry Video Game Nerd movie. So in a couple of months, once we're done with the book, we're going to do a hindsight rewrite on what could have been what he sent out there to be a passable movie rather than a giant piece of fucking shit. Anyone into self-torture, the Angry Video Game Nerd movie is for you. Those fans of film, you will be deeply offended by what he did to the genre. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off for realsies. Thank all you for joining. Now feel free to go away.
Well, it looks like that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for going on this adventure with me. It's fun being with friends. I'll see you next time. Bye now.
Bye for now.
Toodaloo. Au revoir. Auf Wiedersehen. Ciao. Ding dao day.
Places all. All join hands, circle left. Now circle right and listen to me. LS, MFT. Elementary corners like swinging on a gate. To right to you, honey, with the right left 8. Grand right and left around you go. Lucky strike means fine tobacco. Meet your honey and give her a whirl. All swing around with the little girls. Smoke 'em, then you'll see. LS, MFT. Promenade and don't you fall. Promenade around the hall. Lucky strike is first again with tobacco men. Promenade straight down the pike. It's time right now for a lucky strike. Yes, for smoking that you're bound to like, you just can't beat a lucky strike.